We're all about the Archers, and we are thrilled today because we are talking, it's a very special episode. We are talking to the wonderful Sunny Ormonde, who plays Lilian Bellamy. Sunny, welcome to All About the Archers.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me.
We are very excited to talk to you. I mean, Lilian, she's had so
Yeah.
many different things to contend with, but even recently, the renaming of the Bull, the Horse Spa International Outdoor Arena. Do
I
you
know.
love Lilian, or does she drive you a little bit potty
Oh, no.
sometimes?
I adore Lilian. I mean, the day that I landed this part was a day made in heaven as far as I'm concerned, because no, she's such a fun and wonderful character, and she's become my alter ego, really, over the years. And the great thing about being in a soap, whether it be radio or TV, is you're with your character for a very long time, so you get to know them really well, and that's a great privilege. Actually, I mean, I feel very honoured to be in the programme. I feel very privileged to play her, and to have the time over the years to discover who she is, and all the facets of the personality. And yeah, it's a bit like going into studio and putting your hand when you get a script into an old glove. You know it so well, and you know her so well, and that's such a joy. I know, I love her to bits. I love her to bits.
That's brilliant, because a while ago, Kenton claimed that you and David were the ultimate dream team at the Bull when David was having to stand in for Kenton, which was
Yes.
interesting. Who would you think that Lillian's dream team would be?
For what? For her to be part of a dream team?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh, that's an interesting. Do you mean somebody within Ambridge, or anybody at
Well, it
all?
could be either. Yeah, could kind of break the fourth wall and end up anywhere.
You could, well, probably, the dream team outside of it would be something like James Bond, as far as she was concerned, whoever that may be. I think, definitely one of those hunky chaps who played James Bond definitely would be for Lily. I mean, she also, of course, in the Archer, she's always though had a bit of a thing, about Chris Carter. Many years ago, I can remember there was a script which came. It's not with our lovely actor now who plays Chris. It was with the original Chris, and I had lovely lines like, "Oh, there's Chris Carter coming into the yard," and obviously she's always had a bit of a thing about Chris. And we had a scene the other day, actually, and I thought, well, I must remember. And every time she sees Chris, she's "Oh, hello, Chris, how are you?" She's always got an eye, even though she's about 103. No, she's not now. But even though she's getting on a bit, she's always got an eye for the boys. And I always try and inject that a little bit. Sometimes we mustn't forget that she really is a lass who likes the lads. And but dream team. Well, I think I've got my dream team, quite frankly. With Simon Williams, who plays Justin. I mean, and he's so gorgeous. I mean, he really is a terribly good-looking man. Sometimes I say to him, I go into studio if I've not seen him for a bit. I say, because I know him so well now. I say, Simon, you are the most lovely-looking man, and he's terribly modest. He said, well, I've got very even features. And he's so handsome. He's lovely. And of course now we have Lucy Fleming as Miranda, who is Simon's wife in real life. So we're having great fun, actually, with these stories.
Oh, I didn't
Can
even
imagine, yeah.
realise that. Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
yes. Lucy Fleming is Simon's wife in real life, and delightfully she is too. So it's great because I was listening to the omnibus this morning, and they had a lovely scene together, as Miranda and Justin, and I just thought this is such fun for them, to be so antagonistic towards each other, and yeah. It's great. So that will be interesting to see how all that develops. But we're thrilled, to have her in the program. It's great, Miranda, as Lillian says. Oh, Miranda, how are you, Miranda? It's good fun.
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, you've been in since, well, about the year 2000, which is a long time. So you've experienced all
Ooh.
sorts of events for Lillian. When the script arrives now, do you still have that sort of rush of what's she getting into next?
Absolutely. It's always terribly exciting when we get new storylines, and you never quite know how things are going to develop. And sometimes, I mean, we're a big cast in the Archers now, and there are occasions when there are certain characters that you don't really have much to do with. And I can remember a few years ago, having scenes with lovely Jim in The Bull, and I thought, how do I respond as Lilian to Jim? Because I don't think that
Mm.
I've had, I don't have a relationship with him. And that's exciting, when you get new characters. Well, he's an older character, but, character you've not had a lot to do with. And for instance, new characters come in, like lovely Jackie Lai, who plays Joy, who's a good friend of mine, actually, outside of it. But I thought, oh, how does Lilian relate to Joy? Because, Joy's quite a big character. And, so all the time you're thinking, what's my attitude to these people within the village? So yeah, that all that is good fun. Yeah.
Is there anyone that you think you've not had a scene with that you'd like to have one with, or is there someone maybe like Jim or Joy that you've not had many with that you'd like more with?
I'm trying to think now who I don't. I mean, I think people like Emma and Susan. I don't have much. I mean, I have had very little with Emma. Susan, I always love scenes with her, although I haven't had a lot of them. I'm trying to think now. Is there anybody really? I'm sort of going through. I have. Yeah, I mean, I do have relationships with most people, and of course, I'm getting a much closer relationship now uh, with Alice. That's an interesting story that's developing, or relationship that's developing as her aunt. Obviously, I've always been her aunt, but since the sad demise of Jenny, I think Lilian is becoming much more into the forefront with her as a kind of parental figure, and also because they work together. But that's been an interesting journey for me as well, just taking that kind of maternal stuff. Because the thing is, Lilian isn't the best mother in the world anyway. I mean, she's had a pretty disastrous relationship with her son James, and so it's quite interesting now. And she has to step up to the plate a bit, and to try and find that role, maternally. And it's always interesting with her because she isn't a an overt maternal woman. I always have to kind of find ways as Lilian to be maternal, if you know what I mean. She probably does it in a slightly more strident way. Now, come on, darling, get a grip. Whereas Sunny might say, oh, come on, darling. You know what I mean? So always you have to find the truth of it within your character, whatever mood you're playing, really, which is great fun. Yeah.
I mean, I love Lilian, but I sometimes worry about Lilian because she's very outgoing and gregarious, but I don't know if that hides somebody who can be bruised very easy because she's had so much to deal with, like the death of Jenny and not having a close relationship with her son, and I don't want anything serious to come her way. Do you feel protective of her?
I do, and I think obviously over the years, when I've had sort of storylines which have plumbed the depths, and some of them have, which has been great for me as an actor, I have to look at the reasons why she behaves in the way that she. And I think you're absolutely right. I think she's very vulnerable, actually, and I think she has this overcoat of oh hello darlings, but actually it's masking quite a fragile person inside. And you haven't got to forget that she's always liked to drink. Her father was an alcoholic. Jack was an alcoholic, and she, was brought up in the Bull. She was brought up in the pub. And I had wonderful scenes a few years ago with June Spencer, who plays Peggy, who was sharing, who's Lilian's mother, who was sharing with Lilian what it was like to live with an alcoholic. Her father, and of course, Lilian would have been around all that. It must have been quite a kind of scary environment, I think, probably to live in, unpredictable environment in a way. And I always feel with her that she's a bit like a little girl that's never quite grown up. It's all a bit of a mask, I mean, she and Jenny were very different as characters. And the interesting thing is that over the years, because I'm the second person to play Lilian, the original Lilian was much more staid than the Lilian that I am. And in fact, it was Jennifer who was the real rascal and went off and had Adam and was a bit of a gal about town, and their personalities sort of changed a bit, and Jennifer became quite staid and so on. So they had a bit of a personality exchange. But yeah, I think she is quite vulnerable, and she's, and of course she's like her father. She enjoys the drink, and I've always been kind of very mindful of that. I mean, we laugh about having her G&T, darling, but actually she does like the tipple. And I think with everything that's happened with Alice, with the alcoholism, again, we had scenes, Holly and I, who plays Alice, when all that came to the fore about what had happened. And I remember having scenes with her and talking to the producer at the time, whoever was saying, this is going deep with Lilian. It's not just a this could have been her if she'd gone over the edge. So, yeah, it's been very, very interesting. And of course, Harry Chilcott now, who obviously is an alcoholic as well. And so, yeah, it's quite near the bone for her.
Yeah, interesting tangent, isn't it? So just on a more light-hearted subject, yes. Justin the other week talked about him and Lilian going camping, which we're not sure if that was an April Fool's or not, because I can't see Lilian in a tent.
I love that, because I wasn't in that episode, and in fact I heard it and I roared with laughter. And obviously, them going camping, and because he went to see Miranda, didn't he, to get the family tent.
Get the tent.
It was just wonderful. Yeah, I think that was hysterical. I mean, what would that be like? Oh, for goodness sake.
I just wondered what Lilian's idea of camping would be. Would we have kind of rugs on the floor and a little pot plant and a table lamp, or
most
proper glamping?
Yeah, proper glamping. And I mean, she's not seen dead, outside of Ambridge without a stiletto. So it would have to be somewhere where she could wear a stilettos, quite frankly, and a bit of lippy, and have her hair done. I mean, yes, it would be hysterical, wouldn't it? I mean, I just think yes, it would be very, very upmarket glamping as far as she was concerned. I think it would be hysterical, actually. I hope they write an episode. I think we should do it, shouldn't we? It'd be very funny.
Yes.
Because that always amuses me, the fact that that Lily knows a great horsewoman, which is a bit of a joke for me because I'm terrified of horses myself. But anyway, there you go. But I try and imagine sometimes what she looks like when she goes to the stables. Does she have the false eyelashes? Is the hair all done? And are the jodhpurs, star-studded? You know what I mean? I just try and imagine her in that situation. Very funny.
Yeah.
And we've talked briefly about Justin, but Lilian's relationships, I mean, obviously Matt Crawford and then his half-brother Paul, which particularly happened in the Ambridge Extra that I wish we still had, because that was such fun, such tangents. And then Justin, but Lilian decided not to get married to Justin in the end. Do you think she is comfortable? Because the moment Justin mentions the Miranda word, understandably she's on her guard. Do you think she is safe and at home there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, with her, because I would say with Justin, just in time, quite frankly, because he came at the end of the relationship with Matt, and of course with Paul. Yeah, I think somewhere inside she probably would, maybe now with Miranda seemingly so much more in evidence in Ambridge, maybe she would think, actually, maybe we should tie the knot. But I think we always laugh a little bit in the Archers, because if our characters do get married, we always think, kiss of death, really, because it's going to get a bit boring for us. Whereas if you're not married, there's always room for drama and conflict and keeping people on the edge of their seat. And I think, yeah, and she's got enough money herself, really, Lilian, now. Now Matt gave her all the money back. So she's quite a wealthy woman, really. And so I think she's probably happier like that, really, in a way. It's a tricky one. What do you think? What do you girls think?
I do feel like if Matt turned up...
Yes. Yes. I want some... a solid base for Lilian. I want her to be okay and be grounded and able to deal with what life throws at her. And Justin may not be that person. I like the relationship she's got with Brian now. That seems to be, or well, before Miranda came along, that seemed to be going through its own evolution. But I completely get your point about the drama and how that's nice to, have interesting times.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought it was funny that we went on honeymoon, but we didn't get married. Justin and Lilian went on honeymoon, went to India, but they didn't get married. It's typical, isn't it? But yeah, it's lovely that you're so protective of her, Philippa. I think this is delightful that you're so protective of her, really. Yeah, I think, I think personally that Matt was the love of her life. And I mean, she loves Justin and she loved Paul. And I always used to think when the storyline came up of Lilian having the relationship with Paul, the brother, I thought, God, how is she doing this? Because she does love Matt, really. I mean, and at the back of my mind, I had to find justification for it. And I thought, I think that Matt and Paul look really very much alike. As brothers, very alike. And because she couldn't really win Matt's heart, he was always 2 steps away from her. She couldn't just get him. But the thing about Paul was that he was very emotionally available. He wore his heart on his sleeve, and I think that's what she was craving for with Matt. And I always just think that was why she went into the relationship with him, because she risked a lot by doing that, because she was getting from him what she couldn't get from Matt. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, she loves Justin, but it's different. It's always, isn't it, that one that gets away, that you can't quite catch, is the one that you're always wanting, really. And it was interesting when Kim came back as Matt when he a couple of years ago, and she was drawn back in again, and I think, and it's always fun to play scenes with Kim because we always had that element of conflict, and they were great, and it was lovely when they paired us together. In the Archers all those years ago, it was a really good marriage, really, in terms of characters.
Yeah, no, it does work well. So if Paul was still with us as well, and all 3 of them stood in front of you, who do you think she'd go for?
That's a really good question, isn't it? Wow. Oh gosh, that's a really tricky one. I all 3. All 3, why have one when 3 when you can have 3? I think she's got a big appetite in all sorts of ways.
Love her.
Oh dear. You could each have 2 days of the week with Lilian, and then Lilian could have Sundays off.
She'd be exhausted. Yeah, she could. Perfectly. I think that's the solution. Let's suggest it.
Cool.
Done.
But Sunny, as well as being protective of Lilian, I suppose I'm protective of you and the other actors, because being in the Archers is something different. You do become a family. You know the other actors, you know the cast members, and when something happens to them, they ill or unfortunately die, yes, you are reaching deep to perform the drama that your fellow cast member character is no longer there, but also that's a dear friend, and I don't know, how do you cope with all of that?
It is hard when people come in and then they leave, and I mean particularly with lovely Angie, who played Jennifer. Who's now not well. She was a good friend, not just to me, but to a lot of people. And of course, because we were sisters, we had lots of scenes together, and I, got to know her very well. So it was curious as well, because in the same year, not that long apart, June decided to retire, who plays Peggy, and Lilian lost her mother and her sister. And I remember thinking at the time, oh gosh, this was really affecting for her character, for the character itself. I mean, I felt it as keenly Obviously, Sunny, I felt it, but I felt it very keenly for Lilian. And I thought, I wonder how this is going to affect the way that she deals with life now. And then suddenly she was thrust into this more, as I say, maternal role, having to take some sort of responsibility with Alice. And the shock, we were all terribly, we were devastated. I mean, when we had to record the scene, because of course it was Lilian supposedly with Jennifer when she had the heart attack. We had to record that scene, and it was myself, Perdita, who plays Kate, and Holly, who plays Alice, and we were genuinely all in tears because we'd all had these really close relationships. So yes, it does, and certainly when Kim left the program, who played Matt, it was big hole for me because I'd known Kim for years and years and years anyway. I mean, we'd worked together on lots of other projects. So yeah, it is hard when people come because you are like a family. You get to know each other really well, and that's why I say it's a real privilege to be in the program. It's an honour to be in the program because as an actor, it's a very precarious life, and to have something that's, well, I mean, I could be killed off tomorrow. Who knows? Oh no, don't do that to me. But
No.
to have that vague, that security to a certain extent, it's a great privilege. There aren't many actors that have that, and so it's lovely for us actually to have that, and that shorthand, to go into studio and you just pick up a script, and I say it's like putting a hand in a glove. You know who you are, and that's lovely.
Yeah, it must make a real difference from kind of new projects and things like that. You step back into this.
That was why, or that is why it's lovely when you get different sort of storylines coming in that you've not played before, because it does put you into the driving seat again. Think, oh, hang on a minute, you can't just float through it. You have to sort of think, right, how am I going to deal with this one? So there's always a challenge there, even though you've played the character for a long time. New story. I mean, even the lovely scenes that I had with Tim Benting when we were together in the pub, supposedly running the pub together. I mean, actually, Tim and I had a ball because we don't get scenes together like that. And it was really fun, we really fun to play it. So there's always that challenge. You think, oh yeah, he's my cousin, but hang on a minute, this is really interesting. It was fun to do.
So I was lucky enough to be at your recording last year of your podcast, One Stiletto in the Grave, which is absolutely brilliant. And it was great to see behind the scenes of the podcast and everything, and to see proper pros at work, not just this. But your theme last year was all about friendships and things that were made during the Archers and how people had made friends during that. What are some friendships that you've built through this? Were they people that you knew beforehand and you've carried it on because you're both in the Archers, or have you made really good friendships with cast members?
I think both, actually. Both, really. As I say, Kim Durham I knew before, who plays Matt. We'd been in an agency together, a cooperative agency together, and we'd done a lot of different radio projects together in Birmingham at Pebble Mill, when it was Pebble Mill. So I knew Kim well, and that was nice to plumb the depths of our relationship as the characters. Someone like Jackie, as I mentioned before, coming in to play Joy, it's just great. Yasmin, who's come in to play Dr. Khan, she and I worked together years ago at Worcester, at the theatre in Worcester. We did a long season together. It's lovely when people sort of come in and out. And for instance, Maddie, who plays Chelsea, through which I went to go to, I taught her at drama school. As I did, in fact, Emerald, who plays Emma. I taught her at drama school as well. She won the Carlton Hobbs, so which is a lovely radio competition, and she won. Got a contract with radio drama, BBC. So that's always very exciting when people come in that you maybe have taught or you knew very early on in their careers, and they're all doing really, really well. And of course you develop then relationships and friendships with people that you didn't know, and you do become close, and you share each other's lives and the ups and downs, and it's that's rather lovely. It's rather lovely. It's a big extended family.
Well, yes, I concur with what Katie said. The podcast One Stiletto in the Grave is absolutely brilliant, and we'll put a link in the show notes so that people can find it easily
thank you.
and listen. But talking about friendships, one of Lillian's more unique friendships, I would say, is with Linda. And that always brings me joy to hear them sort of rubbing along together. I think is it one description.
Yeah.
Do you have fun recording those scenes?
Yeah, we do. And again, that's a relationship that has evolved so much, over the years. And they were always sparring, always sparring, until, of course, the fire, when she had the horrendous fire at Grey Gables, and she was so ill. And our relationship has changed as characters since then. They have become really close and really bonded because Linda used Lilian as a sounding board to share an awful lot of stuff, and show her vulnerability. So we say that now, our relationship, even if they are sparring, it's never going to be the same again. It's always done with great love. They really respect each other. But yes, they'll always fall out with each other because that's the nature of the beast. They're so very different, but they love each other. And again, that's evolved over the years, which is terrific, actually. To think I've got this, I have made this journey with this particular character, so therefore you have real depth to some of them. And Eddie Grundy, Trev, they've always had, Lilian and Eddie have always had, they were behind the bike sheds when they were kids, at school smoking, and I always love scenes with Trevor because they're so different as characters, but they know each other very well, and there's always a spirit of fun whenever we get together as characters. Yeah. And I do remember that when June left, who played Peggy, my mum, I thought there is nobody now who's going to put Lilian in her place. They've all gone because she did. She'd say, stop. But there's nobody now that will do that for her. This is an interesting one, Yeah.
I was going to say, with that, is that now, has that been handed to the next generation? So we would see maybe Alice and Kate saying to Lilian, or hang on, Auntie Lilian, no, what about this? Sort of holding her to account. I think Lilian still got those people. They've just skipped down a couple of generations.
Yeah, I'm sure. And actually, I think Chelsea probably would tell her what's what as well. Not in a relative at all. I had one of the very early scenes that I had with Maddie as Chelsea, because she just says it as it is, doesn't she, Chelsea? I just love her. And she turned around and there was a line in the script which said, I think she was trying to do Lilian's hair and she was trying to put Lilian in her place, and she said, well, what do you think, Lil? Nobody had ever called Lilian Lil before. And I thought, how do I react to this? Outrage. It was very funny. So I think if anybody's going to put her in the place, probably it would be Chelsea.
Good old Chelsea.
Good old Chelsea.
There's no stopping Lilian now. She's off.
Absolutely.
So it's no secret that I am a big Lilian fan. She is my number one character, and me and one of my other friends, Margot, we always say that we want to be more Lilian, and what would Lilian do if we're talking about stuff. So
thank you.
Yes,
thank you, Margot.
Very big fan.
Yeah. No. Well,
yes,
definitely. The thing is, she says and does, doesn't she, all the things that we'd all like to say and do, but don't, because she is a bit like Chelsea. She says it as it is. And so those characters are always really attractive because you think, well, now what's she going to do? Now what's she going to say? She's always outrageous, and that's why she's fun to play, of course. And just going back a little bit to One Stiletto in the Grave, it was really Lilian who inspired my friend Jane and I to do the podcast, because we were kind of mindful that there weren't many podcasts out there for older women, older people, and so that was so it was Lilian, who inspired that. Come on, she's still got go in her, Yeah,
definitely. But going on the podcast side, you also do a one-woman show as well. So my last little question to you is, have you got any more one-woman shows coming up or anything? I did see you a while ago in Tring and it was brilliant.
Oh, bless you. You saw that one, did you? Gosh, that's brilliant. A long time ago. I haven't. I mean, I've been doing my one-woman show for a very long time. And the last one was in Hereford a couple of weeks ago. But I haven't got any more lined up, but I will have. I mean, I've got another one-woman show which is called Dorothy, the airings of an archer's actor's aunt, which again was written for me by Janie, who I do the podcast with. She's a wonderful writer, Janie, absolutely wonderful. And the premise of that is, that she's a sort of disapproving aunt of the girl who plays Lilian in The Archers, and she disapproves of her completely, and that's very, very funny. I mean, she's I suppose the character is a cross between Margaret Thatcher and I don't know what Bouquet, the Pat Routledge character.
Hyacinth Bouquet.
Thank you very much. That had gone out of my head. So she's a cross between that. She's very, very, very like that. She's very northern. So she's complete contrast to Lilian. She's a great joy to play. But yeah, so I've got that one, and then I've got my own show, an evening with. And of course, many years ago, I had a two-woman show with my friend Sarah Coward, who who was in the show, and in fact it was Sarah really who tipped me the week that Lilian was coming back into the programme and called it Wicked Women, and of course she played Caroline Sterling, sadly no longer with us, but yes, that was good fun because they both were naughty girls, you see, in the programme, so we devised this show called Wicked Women.
Brilliant. Well, Sunny, we're about to come on to the questions from our Facebook group, which is the extra YouTube content. But before that, one very quick question, which we ask every cast member, and it is crucial. It's about the subject of biscuits. Sunny, what do you think is Lillian's biscuit of choice?
Oh, my goodness, what would it be? It would be something exotic, I think, wouldn't it? It would be something like Viennese swirl or a Viennese whirl or whatever they call it, or a gypsy cream. Or it would be, or a jammy dodger, or maybe even a jammy dodger, because, she's a bit jammy and she'd be dodging any situation. So, yes.
Love it. That's brilliant. Thank you. Well, yes, so we come to these questions that our Facebook group have asked us to ask you. And the first one is from Frank, and Frank says, "Oh, please, please, please make her do her dirty laugh. It always makes me laugh when she does it."
Right, Frank, this is for you. Got to work up to it. All right. All right, Frank, is that all right?
Oh, very good.
Brilliant. The next question's from Nikki, and she said, if Tiger happened to stop at the new charging station on the way to his next dodgy deal and bumped into Lilian, what would Lilian do? Justin is so boring. Would she be tempted?
Well, Nikki, my goodness gracious me. Well, knowing Lilian, if she'd had a couple of gins, she'd probably jump in the car and say, "Come on, Tiger, let's go for a whirl." Now, how long the whirl would last, I don't know.
Yeah. Depends how long they've charged the car for, I suppose, as well.
Indeed, depends. Indeed, you're quite right there. Yes, it could be a short hop or a long hop, couldn't it?
Oh, brilliant. The next question is from Pam, and Pam says, if Sunny could play any other character in The Archers besides Lilian, who would it be and why?
That's really good, Pam. Do you know, I've thunked about this myself sometimes. I've thought about it. I've already mentioned her, actually, but I think Susan Carter. I think, Charlotte is brilliant playing. I think she's brilliant as Susan, but also she's such a contrast to Lilian. I could never ever begin to do it anywhere near as well as Charlotte, but she would be a real challenge. I quite like the busybody, aspect of her, and so Susan Carter.
Fantastic.
Get all the gossip.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the next question's from Max. And he says, Lilian loves a G&T, as we've said earlier. But what is your favourite beverage as Sunny?
Oh, that's interesting, Max. Well, I tell you what, I like a G&T myself as well. But, I'm a beer girl. I like ale. I really like ale.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Do you? Are you Katie? Are you an ale
love
girl?
a bitter.
Oh, I
Yeah.
do too. And yeah, I like trying lots of different types of them. Yeah, so I'm an ale girl actually, but I do like the gin. I mean, there's so many wonderful gins out there now, aren't there, in the world? Different sorts, but ale really, ale.
There we go. The next question is from Rob, and he says, not a question, but just saying that I was the person who walked up to you in Birmingham as you were going into the live recording. You said that people probably wouldn't recognise you, and said that I did. It took all my willpower not to grab you for a selfie. There we go. Do people often want selfies with you,
Rob.
Sunny?
Well, they do. I thought you were going to say snog then for a minute when you said the S, selfie, snog. Oh, bless. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, they do. They do. I tell you one of the funniest things. It wasn't a selfie, but many years ago. But we're in the same sort of territory. I was coming back from I think it was Greece on a plane, and you know what? It was a bit of a scrum on the plane to get to your seats and all that. And everybody's running. And I'm not the tallest girl in the world. It has to be said. And the person that I was with was trying to put things in the overhead locker, and I was passing this bag up and going like this, and I said, "Can you get there?" And the person who I was passing in the seat to my right said, "Lilian in the Archers?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Could you still laugh for me?" And I go, "Yeah." Trying desperately to put this. It was the maddest, most bizarre scene. But you know, didn't take into account that I was struggling to try and get down the plane and get this thing in the overhead locker. Can you do the laugh for me? Yes, all right. And off I walked. It was just bizarre. It's bizarre. Not a selfie, but you know, we're in the same territory now.
Yes, yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, I have to admit I am one of those selfie people, and I have got a very treasured selfie with you, so totally fangirling.
Oh, that's it.
So I've got a question from Dawn, and she said, I wonder how much Sunny enjoyed making the Ambridge Extra episodes.
Oh, Dawn, yeah, I did a lot actually. They were great fun, all those extra stories that we did, and of course a lot of that was to do with, you know, Kim going off around the world and me pursuing him, and you know, and all that. They were great fun, and it's a shame that we haven't got them anymore, really. But yeah, we were working really hard. Not only were we doing the straight ones for Radio 4, but then we were off into the Ambridge Extra as well. Yeah, no, they were good fun.
We love listening to them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The last
it was a good
the last
story.
questions. Yes, the last question's from Pam, and this is just a pretend question. Don't take this seriously. But Pam says, besides yourself, which actor in or outside the Archers cast would you like to see tackle the role of Lilian? She says she thinks Leslie Manville would do a good job as Lilian, but she says please don't tell Sunny that. But I'm telling you, Sunny.
No, I'm delighted. I think that's really interesting, Pam. Who would tackle her? Oh gosh, that's I don't know.
Irreplaceable.
I mean,
one can.
Irreplaceable. Thank you, Philippa. I mean, we recently did a podcast with lovely Ruth Jones, you know, of Gavin and Stacey, and of course she's a great artist. I'd like Ruth maybe to have a go with the Welsh accent. That'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? You know, I don't know how you laugh in a Welsh accent, but or Justin. No, I'll have a gin. That would be quite fun. I might email Ruth and say, "Oi, I'm just." We did say though on the podcast, you know, for anyone. I mean, anyone who's not, you know, who likes podcasts, do listen to that particular episode with us, one Stiletto in the simply because she was fascinating and so interesting to talk to about all sorts of different things. But I think one of the questions I asked was, you know, would you like to be in the Archers? She adores the Archers. I can't be in it. I can't be in it. It's sacrosanct. You know, it's my.
Yeah. That was a great interview.
A lot of people say that. It was nice, wasn't it? She was just delightful and so open and honest about things. No, really lovely person.
Well, we come to the very final question of this podcast, which is the sort of pass the parcel question. So the last time we did an interview, it was with Richard Attlee, who plays Kenton. And Kenton's question is this for you.
Yeah.
If Lilian were to take Kenton out on a good night, where would you take him?
Oh, darling. Well, I think we would do the town. I mean, you know, she'd take him to all the clubs, I think, in Birmingham, because I think she thinks he would need a good time. He's too stressed half the time. And of course, now, he's had all the issue with the dog. You know, no, definitely, she'd take him on a pub crawl and a nightclub crawl, I think, somewhere in Birmingham, and, well, to various places in Birmingham, I think, and things, yes, let him chill out. Chill out.
Lovely. Some gin and tonic tasting and maybe some real ale tasting as well.
Oh, yes. I mean, I know, you know, that's a world that he lives in the pub, but I think he could do with, you know, letting his hair down and being on the other side of the bar and just having a good time.
Oh, well, Sunny, we've had such a good time talking to you. Honestly, it's just been wonderful to hear more about you and about Lilian, who, you know, who we care for so much. So, Sunny Ormonde, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for asking me. Lovely to meet you both.